Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second half of this special weekend focused on Adele. And, today's song is called Hello. I guess I should say hello. I did say hello, didn't I? Yesterday's song, of course, was Someone Like You, and hopefully by now you've seen that. If not, do check it out. After I did that first listen, Vlad sat me down for the minutes after. It's something we shoot together to put on our Coffee and Patreon pages, and he showed me a live performance of her doing Someone Like You, which included some background. It was nice to get a feel of her personality and who she is. And of course, as a performer, I know that what is presented on stage is not always the person, the everyday person. But she gave the impression that she was, or I got the impression that she is a very genuine, open, good-hearted, caring person, generous in her personality and expression and sharing of herself. And it was really lovely and nice to get that glimpse into who she is. I don't know what Hello is going to be like, but I have a couple of paragraphs to read and then we'll listen. Hello was released on the 23rd of October 2015 by Adele as the lead single from her third studio album. Hello was a massive global success, topping the record charts in a record-setting 36 countries, including in the United Kingdom, where it became Adele's second chart topper following Someone Like You. Okay. And had the largest opening week sales in 3 years. In the United States, Hello debuted atop the Billboard Hot 100, reigning for 10 consecutive weeks while becoming Adele's fourth #1 single on the chart and breaking several records, including becoming the first song to sell over 1 million digital copies in a week. By the end of 2015, it had sold 12.3 million units globally, combined sales and track equivalent streams, and was the year's 7th best-selling single, while it stands as one of the best-selling digital singles of all time. So this is really a modern chart topper, isn't it? Not even quite 10 years ago. I don't feel too far behind then, considering some of the stuff I've been catching up on. But I think it's time for me to hear this one too.
Hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all these years you'd like to meet to go over everything. They say that time's supposed to heal ya, but I ain't done much healing. Hello, can you hear me? I'm in California dreaming about who we used to be when we were younger and free. I've forgotten how it felt before the world fell at our feet. There's such a difference between us and a million miles.
All right. I have to confess that the first 2 piano chords caught my attention and kind of distracted me from everything else that was going on. So I am actually going to back up now to the beginning because we're not too far in. And I want to pay attention to what she's singing as well. But let me just tell you what I'm hearing. The piano started, and it's those wonderful, rich, solid chords, of course, sounding like it's on a pretty nice piano, or at least great sound sampling, whether it's an acoustic or whatever, but it has that wonderful deep piano tone, and it's placed down here in the lower half of the keys where you just get that richness and sonority. More than that, by the second chord, I recognized a rhythm, which is an old traditional, dating back to classical, if we want to be specific, even pre-Baroque. But let me just sing something and see if you recognize it. Dum ba, da dum ba, da 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 di da da. Now,
Lasciami pianga.
yes. Now, feel the pulse. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And there are actually some old dance forms which were integrated into the classical music tradition in general. I won't go into all of that, but they specialize in this 1, 2, 3 pulse, where you kind of lean on the 2 rather than 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which is more of a waltz feel, isn't it? Or lighter dance feel. So whoever's doing the piano on this managed to set me up by the second chord. I immediately knew by the second chord that I was on beat 2. And I truly I was kind of waiting to see, is it going to be da-dum-bum or something like that? It wasn't. But then I was so focused on the piano to notice, okay, how is this going to develop? Because with someone like you, of course, it had this simple arpeggiated broken chord accompaniment. This is different. Still, we could say it's still simple, right? Basic chords, but so well chosen to give this piece the emotional depth that it needs. And, well, just play a game in your mind for a moment. What if it had arpeggiated chords? It would feel trite. It would feel commercial. It would feel insincere or too fluffy or too sappy. These deep chords in the piano helped to balance this sort of sentimental, hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all these years you'd like to meet to go over everything. They say that time's supposed to heal you, but I ain't done much healing. Hello, can you hear me? Obviously, this is the start of a piece that is really digging into one's feelings for a lost love or broken love or whatever it was in the past. So, all of that is to say, I'm going to start from the beginning because I need to pay attention to more than just the piano.
Hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all these years you'd like to meet to go over everything. They say that time's supposed to heal ya, but I ain't done much healing. Hello, can you hear me? I'm in California dreaming about who we used to be when we were younger and free. I forgot.
I like the way she sings. When we were younger and free, it gives just a little bit of a lift on the end of free. She's doing a great job expressing the emotions with her voice. I hear a lot of subtlety and detail in every point of the note that she sings. it strikes me now as I'm paying attention to her and not just the piano. This is not somebody actually calling or writing. This is somebody kind of in their imagination, perhaps wishing they were brave enough to call or wishing they were willing to pick up the phone. It feels too, not really reaching out, reaching across, at least to me. That's how I perceive it. And of course, a lot of these things can be very specific to the individual and how we feel it. That's how I feel it. So I'm setting up the picture of, okay, this person, they're sitting in California. Perhaps they're imagining writing a letter. Although, hello, it's me, is kind of like picking up the phone and calling. And they're kind of going through in their mind, what would I say? What would I say? How would I excuse myself for calling? And that's how I feel it developing.
California, dreaming about who we used to be when we were younger and free. I've forgotten how it felt before the world fell at our feet. There's such a difference between us and a million miles. Hello from the...
Isn't it interesting how, as she's singing that passage, the piano keeps this 1, 2, 3 down here, but it's almost like she's singing in two. Da 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 da, 1, a 2, a 1, a 2, a 1, a 2. It's just
California, dreaming about who we used to be when we were younger
1, 2, 1, 2,
and free.
1, 2, 1, 2.
I've forgotten how it felt before the world fell at our feet. There's such a difference.
And of course, as a singer, she gives it a little bit of flexibility. She doesn't lock in too long.
Hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. But when I call, you never seem to be home. Hello from the outside. At least I can say that I've tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but it don't matter. It clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore.
She's got some real power in her voice, and she really digs into it there. It's so interesting to hear something like this for me, who I have never been steeped in popular music, modern, contemporary, popular artists. Obviously, this is my first time hearing this piece by Adele, so that gives you an idea. You Adele fans out there, you can be horrified, shocked if you wish. This is the case. It's a piece which could easily be too sappy. It could easily start feeling, okay, another one of those. Okay. Especially because the way she's singing is a very modern style, isn't it? You don't hear melodies like this from folk tunes way back. You don't hear melodies like this even back with, let's say, the Beatles or Queen. You don't hear this type of melody until we step into, I don't know exactly when it started because I'm not that much of an expert on it, but it is clearly a modern vocal, not just vocal, melodic style. And it's interesting for me to hear it in a piece that manages to, at least so far from my perspective, tread the fine line between getting too sappy, too sentimental, so that it just feels like, okay, another one of those songs. Actually, it feels like this person has truly experienced something like this. It feels like it's coming from the heart. It feels genuine, even in spite of all the modern perfect sound, perfect production, all of this stuff that goes into these modern artists. And I don't know enough about Adele to know to know how much of that goes into her music, but it certainly sounds flawless, doesn't it? It's easy for something that sounds flawless to sound artificial. But somehow this doesn't quite do that. It keeps a sense of a real person behind it. And I really appreciate that, because in this modern age where there is so much commercially produced music that it's, a dime a dozen, to find something that feels truly genuine and yet stands up to the quality tests, that's pretty good, isn't it? Back to this piano pacing.
Hello, how are you? It's so typical of me to talk about myself.
Okay, the drums are now doing it in 2 as well. So we get this cross rhythm going. 3 in the piano, 2 in the voice and the drums.
Get out of that town where nothing ever happened. It's no secret that the both of us are running out of time. So hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. But when I call, you never seem to be home. Hello from the outside. At least I can say that I've tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart. But it don't matter, it clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore.
That last section, it keeps going and going and going. There's no good place to pause it to comment. Let me see if I can remember, because I made this checklist in my mind of the things that really stood out to me and I noticed I want to share. Right. So, first of all, I mean, it's really beautiful, isn't it? I have to say it's beautiful. And well, that's the truth. Let's go back to the beginning of that because I noticed it also in another spot, but it stood out to me here as well.
So hello from the
Yeah. When she sings "So Hello" from the other side, it feels like, well, the second syllable of hello is so blended in and smoothed over, you hardly hear it. Which gives it a sort of a double meaning, doesn't it? Because if you say "so hello" from the other side, that's one thing. But if you say "so hell" from the other side, it's as if, I'm telling you how horrible my life is here. It's hell. I have this, I have never let go, and it haunts me and it affects my life every day. And here I'm going on. And it stood out to me here. It stood out to me the first time the strong section came in. Later in this last section, it was easier to hear the O. I am not sure if that was really intentionally done, but it certainly is there to my ears. And as I'm hearing this for the first time, it stands out to me as something really noticeable and adding a sort of darker expression underneath the hello from the other side. The other thing that I noticed as I let this passage just carry on, the way that the voice and the piano are the most prominent, but then we have other things coming in. We have some strings, we have a bit of percussion, we have some synthesized voices and probably some non-synthesized those little interjections, responses. The way that all blends together, because I'm listening to this style of music which I so rarely pay attention to, and I'm noticing the details, the way the melody has these peaks that just pop out and then come back down. I'll talk about that in a moment too. I want to make sure I don't forget that either. The places where, as I said yesterday, there are places where the flow of the text is interrupted in unusual spots. I didn't find any really strong logic for it last time other than just a stylistic practice, which worked in a certain way. And you can go listen to that if you want to hear my perspective on that. But here in this passage, what I'm hearing is something that if you just let it flow and wash over you, it starts to feel like someone sobbing, catching their breath, and the sort of exhale and sharp inhale of someone crying, sobbing, that sort of deep expression of sadness, loss, grief. It's a blend of the instruments, the way the voice is singing and the way the answering voices come in, the percussion, the piano. But when it all washes together, that's the effect that I get. And then as I start tearing it apart, it sounds in a way, it could sound kind of triumphant because she has this powerful voice, and it's almost like she's singing an anthem, a declaration, a triumphant piece of music. But then when all of this comes in, it changes the feel of it, doesn't it? And it's no longer a celebration. It's no longer a feeling of joy. Perhaps it's a feeling of strength to continue, strength to carry on, strength to there's a sort of inner strength to the piece, and I'll have to think through exactly what it's expressing, but it's so interesting to hear these different elements coming together to give that overall impression to me. All right, the peaks and the valleys. The way the song peaks up, the melody peaks up at, if you're just listening casually, perhaps random moments, right? It does have a sort of rhythmic impact, it does, but I don't think that that's the only use of it here. I noticed that it peaks up on certain words, kind of highlighting those words. And in a text like this, it's nicely written. I wouldn't call it Shakespeare or anything like that. It's not something that strikes me as incredibly artistically, linguistically expressed, but it's a nicely written expression of these feelings. I did notice that it's kind of nice the way it starts hello from the other side, and then later hello from the outside. A little twist there. So I noticed a couple little details like that. But when the melody peaks up on a certain word, it kind of helps to emphasize that particular word. Let's just listen to a little bit of it here.
So hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. But when I call you, never seem to be home. Hello from the outside.
It brings out, and now hear the sobbing, the
At
pulsing.
least I can say that I've tried.
That sort of catching your breath.
To tell you
Tell you, I'm sorry.
for breaking your heart, but it don't matter.
It don't matter.
Clearly doesn't tear you apart.
And so I think that it is a stylistic element which is very well applied in this piece of music. It becomes more than just, the contemporary style of the time. It becomes something which is actually being used to express artistically what is going on, and to direct our focus to certain points of the music. So those are just some details I noticed in my first time around. Really, as I said, it's a beautiful piece of music. And I love it especially because I sense that there is more than just the surface sentimentality. I sense that there is a deeper side of it. Not just in the story, but in the artistic expression of it. And that is something that, as a musician, as a performer, as someone who values artistic integrity, that is something I truly appreciate. And while we're on that subject, perhaps this is a good way for me to close. I am happy to know that this was such a big hit, because I like the idea of thinking that, the world still has good taste in music, and something that is such a massive success, such a commercial success, such a, goes all around the world and becomes the song, as I was reading in the opening paragraphs, to see that it is more than just something that appeals to the surface impressions and the surface sensitivities, shall I say? I think I like that a lot, because I don't believe that as some people like to say, I don't believe that everybody just wants the cheapest, easiest, quickest, instant gratification type music. Yes, there is plenty of that, and plenty of people who want that. But I truly believe, as a musician, as an artist, that every person has a deeper side of them. And it's always my goal to connect to that. And I so enjoy seeing that there is an artist like Adele out there who has managed to be successful and at the same time present something that has artistic depth to it. That, to me, is worthy of noticing and worthy of appreciating. So there we have my first exposure to Hello, the second piece I've ever listened to by Adele, at least to my knowledge. And what a beautiful piece. I'm sure I'll be listening to it in the future as well. I'll see you all soon.